Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Joining me now is Senator Joe Lieberman. Senator Lieberman, thank you so much for joining me today.
Glad to be with you, Brittany. Glad to talk about what's happening in Israel now.
Let's set the scene a bit. We saw over the weekend Hamas struck Israel via land, air, and sea in just a heinous attack. So first, I want to ask you, what do you make of the United States' response?
I think the United States response has been excellent and extremely supportive, beginning with President Biden, both in conversations with Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel, but also and the deployment of a aircraft carrier unit, but also in backup defense, air defense systems and the like, but also the a very strong bipartisan support in Congress for Israel and against the terrorists. And I think part of it is the longstanding friendship between the U.S. alliance and Israel. But part of it probably is that a lot of people in Congress, just like me, that the surprise Hamas attack on Israel last Saturday reminded us of the surprise terrorist attack on America on 9/11. So it's time to pull together and support our allies and the forces of democracy.
Multiple Americans were killed in this attack. According to reports, multiple Americans are held hostage in Gaza right now. So what do you think the United States should do next? What are the next steps here?
Well, I mean, first thing, Israel is pursuing a military action to push whatever terrorists remain in Israel out, and frankly, to punish and limit the capacity of Hamas in Gaza for what they did. Qatar, which is a country with which we've had good relations, but also plays both sides of the street. For better or worse, right now they seem to have some access because they have been supportive of Hamas to the possibility of liberating some of the hostages, particularly the men and women. That would be a humanitarian act. And I think the United States and Israel and our other allies around the world should face a major truth here, which is that really that the source of this terrorist attack was not really Hamas. It was Iran. It was the Islamic Republic of Iran. Hamas is a kind of a proxy or a wholly owned subsidiary. Hamas could never have launched such an attack on its own. It doesn't have the missiles 5,000 that it fired at Israel. So I think that I would, if you left it to me, I would say the U.S., Israel, and our allies should take action against military and intelligence targets in Iran, the IRGC and the rest, missile factories, to let them know that we know that they're the cause of this problem, and we're not going to take it anymore.
What would that specific action look like? There was a joint statement, as I'm sure you've seen, from the White House, the United Kingdom, France, other allies condemning this attack, standing strongly with Israel. And reporting from the Wall Street Journal says that Iran was connected to this attack. So what would you like to see from the international community in relation to Iran?
Yeah, well, incidentally, I thought the Wall Street Journal investigative piece on Iran's involvement in this attack was very convincing and very well done. So what I'd like to see from the international community, led by the U.S., is not just the wonderful support they've given to Israel at this moment of national crisis in Israel, but a focus on the source of the problem, which is Iran. And incidentally, Iran is not just the source of Hamas doing what it did to Israel. As we know, it's supplying missiles and other equipment to the Russians, and they're using that to kill innocent Ukrainians. The Iranians have supported groups that have taken aggressive action, killed people in the Arab world. So I think it's time to call out Iran, and I'm afraid they don't understand anything but force. So I would threaten them, and then I'd be prepared to punish them for their role in all those international crimes, the latest being Hamas's attack on Israel by striking military targets in Iran, beginning with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which probably planned all this and was probably in Gaza when it came off.
Some Republicans have connected President Biden and the Biden administration's Iran policy to this attack, particularly that $6 billion for the hostage negotiation. The White House has said that is not true. There's no evidence of that. What do you make of Republicans right now saying that?
Well, I don't look. I was very much against that hostage exchange, and because any money you give to the Iranians, no matter what the piece of paper says, they're going to use it for evil purposes, including supporting terrorism. But I don't think that's the reason why Hamas struck Israel last Saturday with the enormous backing of Iran. I think this was long in the works and part of an overall strategy by Iran to strike at its enemies. Israel is one of them, but there are Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, etc., are enemies of Iran, and the biggest is the one they call the Great Satan, which is the United States of America. So I think unless we stop Iran now and make it clear to them that we know that without their support, this Hamas terrorist, brutal, inhumane attack on Israel would not have happened. And a lot of other bad things in the world, like helping Russia against Ukrainians. They're responsible, incidentally, for the death of hundreds of American soldiers who were in Iraq because the Iranians were training Iraqi militia in Iran, sending them over, and they were then killing our American soldiers. It's time for us to get real about Iran. There's no hope for peace with Iran. There's no hope for an agreement with Iran that we can trust. The only way that things will get better in Iran is if the regime falls and there's some alternative, and there's plenty of good alternatives available. Look, the people of Iran have been protesting for over a year because of the death of the woman just because she wasn't dressed as the morality police wanted. This is not a popular regime, and we ought to be supporting the opponents of the regime in Tehran, not dealing with the regime at all.
Many on the left, many prominent Democrats have been standing unequivocally with Israel, but there have been some who have made both side statements. I want to read you one from Rashida Tlaib, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. She said, quote, "The path to that future must include lifting the blockade, ending the occupation, and dismantling the apartheid system that creates the suffocating, dehumanizing conditions that lead to resistance." And quote, "As long as our country provides billions in unconditional funding to support the apartheid government, this heartbreaking cycle of violence will continue." First, what do you make of statements like those? And second, do you think top leaders on the left need to be condemning these?
Yeah, I think it's a ridiculous and offensive statement. There's no moral ambiguity about this. Terrorists came into Israel. They killed innocent people. They took hostages, including men and women. There are terrible stories here about how they're treating the women, particularly, who are being held hostage. It's just a time to say, wherever you are on the Israel-Palestinian question, this can't go in our world. So the fact that the Congresswoman and one or two others have made statements like that just shows that they're more ideological and unfortunately anti-Israel than they are realistic. And yes, of course, I hope that not only the mainstream Democratic Party leadership will condemn statements like Congressman Tlaib's, and because they already have taken a totally different and pro-Israel statement, but I hope leaders on the left will do that as well. I mean, it's a time to pull together. Again, one of the lessons here in Israel, Israel has had a time of terrible political division about the so-called judicial reform laws that the Netanyahu government is proposing. A lot of people here think it's the most divided Israeli politics has ever been. But immediately after the terrorist attack, that was all forgotten. And the country pulled together as one country, in some ways, one big family. And I think we in America have to remember that or learn from it. Let's hope it doesn't take a catastrophe in America like 9/11 to bring us together again. We can have political disputes. I find Congresswoman Tlaib's statement offensive and somewhat bigoted, but she got a right to say it. I just hope not too many other people agree with her and people of goodwill condemn it. But again, we Americans are part of one country and one big family. We can have political disputes, but in the end, for the sake of our country and our family, we better learn how to work together.
Senator, I do want to end on a personal note. I know you were the first and only Jewish vice president nominee. Speaking from personal experience, and you are in Israel right now, how is this impacting you?
Well, it was quite a jolt. I mean, Saturday, October 7th, was the last day of the Jewish holiday of Sukkot, the Festival of Tabernacles, very happy harvest holiday. And it was a happy holiday until this shocking news, jarring. It seemed unreal at the beginning. Sirens went off where I was. People went to the security rooms. Prayer services were interrupted. But when the sirens stopped, we all went back to praying and celebrating the holiday afterward. But there's no question that for me and a lot of others who have supported Israel and the U.S.-Israel relationship, this surprise attack Hamas first was shocking and proves, there'll be a time for this afterward about how they possibly could have done this and surprised Israel. But the other thing is they just acted brutally, and we have to stand by them. But I'll tell you this, the country, Israel, I happen to be here, I see it, they're coming together. The different factions in the Israeli government are talking right now as we speak, Brittany, about forming a unity government. I hope they do it today. And I can tell you in the neighborhoods I've been in, people are lined up to give blood for the soldiers. They're bringing food and warm clothes, whether the soldiers need it or not, just to be part of what's happening. So in the end, Israel's going to be okay. But this terrorist attack really hurt the country. And it's going to take a while to come back to it. And it had the same effect on me as an American who loves Israel.
The attack has had an effect worldwide. I mean, we saw those excruciating social media videos of the attack. The Jewish American community right now is hurting. What's your message to them?
Well, help out Israel in every way you can. Pray, but in the end, have confidence that Israel is going to be okay. It's a very strong country. This brutal, barbaric terrorist attack, it does not threaten the existence of Israel. People compare it to the Yom Kippur War in 1973. Really, that looked like it might have threatened the existence of Israel. So that's something to feel grateful for. But on the other hand, you've got more than 900 dead Israelis, including at least 11 who are American citizens, and you have 150 hostages, probably some of which are also American citizens. So it's a time of determination, of pulling together. But no, there's no question about it. The country, the people of the country are hurting about what happened. I just say one last thing. It's a small country. I mean, it's 7 million people, maybe 8 million. So I can tell you, just walking along the street, going to the supermarket, whatever, almost everybody has somebody in their family who was called up to military duty. And frankly, too many people know somebody who was killed or even taken as a hostage. So, we're a country of 330 million. Israel is about 7 or 8 million. So you can imagine how everybody is affected. And the other thing is, a lot of the country goes to war when the country is at war. In the U.S., it's still about 2% of our population that's really in active duty. And thank God most of the wars are not next door, but far away, except for 9/11. So, but at bottom line for the Jewish American community, stand by Israel and have confidence that notwithstanding this terrible blow, the Israelis are pulling back together with tremendous determination, and Israel is going to be okay.
Senator Joe Lieberman, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your insight. Please stay safe, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Brittany.